actively working on the landscape. He had a map with him that was published less than a century before, which showed Glacier Bay as a 5-mile indentation. And when he arrived here, he found that wall of ice, which had been described in the 1700s as being near the entrance of the lake, had retreated back 50 miles to the very spot that we're passing now. Now, Muir was ecstatic at this discovery because not only was he able to prove how the valleys of the Sierra Nevada had formed, but he also was the first to recognize the degree of change that had taken place here. He was one of the first European witnesses to the fastest glacial retreat in history. And he came back here several more times to document that retreat. If you look at your map, you'll notice some lines labeled 1892, and that's where he found that wall of ice on a subsequent visit.
I hope we don't hit one of these icebergs.
Border. The Grand Pacific Glacier is that large black mass directly in front of us. Now this is essentially the tale of two glaciers. It is the best of times and the worst of times here in Glacier Bay. The Monterey Glacier is fairly healthy and stable, whereas the Grand Pacific Glacier is still retreating. And the explanation for the differences between these two glaciers lies in their origin and the rate at which they move. The Monterey Glacier originates at high elevation in the Fairweather Mountains, those tall coastal mountains off to our left. That glacier receives a steady supply of snowfall throughout the year. Because of its steep slope, it moves ice forward at a rate of 7 feet a day, heaving it into the bay and creating all the icebergs we see around us. Most of the rocks the glacier collects are also discharged into the water. Now you'll notice that this glacier calves, but that doesn't mean the glacier is melting back. That ice is being replenished continually. The Grand Pacific Glacier has its origin in a relatively low elevation area on the back side of the Fairweather Mountains. It doesn't receive as much snow, and it's losing mass over time. Now this glacier passes through a region of crumbly rock, an area subject to landslides, and that's why it appears black in places. Instead of heaving ice and rocks into the bay, because it's coming down a less steep slope, it's not moving as quickly, and a lot of that rock is getting locked up on the face of the glacier. That's why it has that black appearance. From this vantage point, however, you can look beyond that black wall and see that it is indeed a glacier.
This is the other glacier coming down here that's coming right to the water. And I think they said it's goes back 35 miles, and it's coming right to the surface of the water, and I think they said it comes like about 7 feet, moves 7 feet a day. So it's breaking off, but that's part of the progression of the glacier. It has nothing to do with global warming. Global warming would only affect the replenishment of the glacier, not the amount that's falling off on the end. That has to do with the slope of the mountain, as well as the height of the ice that is pressing down on it to push it out. So when you see the glaciers breaking off and falling into the ocean, and it looks very, very exciting, but it's not necessarily an indication of the warming of the climate. And of course there's the question of whether the warming is caused by man or by just normal changes in the environment, solar and other factors. Another thing of interest is if you look through the glacier there, it gets bluer as it go down to the bottom. And I think a part of that has to do with, they said that that's, I think, the height of a 21-story building right there. So the question is, how much force is on the lower levels of the ice, because it's all piled up on top, and as it gets closer to the bottom, it's under a lot of pressure. So it tends to flow. There's been a few hunks of ice falling off. I think you're sort of a waiting game here, because until something falls, you don't know that it's going to fall. So you can just hope that something will fall in the next minute or so. You can see that they're sort of hanging up there. Ready to fall off. Big cracks over there. It's what they call a tidal glacier, because it comes right up to the water, and so apparently the tides go up and down, they sort of affect it as well. You can see that the tide is sort of undercut the ice right there, as it's so that it becomes cantilevered off and breaks off. You could hear a cracking sound a few seconds ago. I didn't see any broken pieces falling into the water, but sort of suggests that something's going to happen sometime soon. This is a couple miles across.
They will take your luggage, but you have to make
On the other side of the glacier. Yeah.
Which should we stay away from?
Heard a couple big cracks. Haven't seen big collapse at this moment. It's pretty cool how it sounds like a rifle going off or a crack.
It does, and I would happen to be watching it, and what you hear then is when it hits the water.
Oh.
It's a big slap.
We do.
They said that's like, I don't know, 20-story building or something.
Yeah.
They just offered it up.
That's the first time I've noticed it. On this elevation, I couldn't see it down below the top of the glacier going over the ridge up there at the mine.
Sort of rocky, or like a bunch of spiky things.
It's right in that.
College students.
This is, we're exiting the Glacier Bay pretty soon. They said there might be some animals, whales and things like that out in this area because it's shallower, but we haven't seen anything so far. But just get an idea of what the scenery is.
This is the way it's sitting in the water. You tie the big thing here. This goes down to the big rock, and it just sits there. Your continuous line comes up to the surface, and they'll have a buoy up there. They're neat machines. They're not.
To give you a feel for how big this is, you can see two boats out there, and it looks like those mountains are just across the way a little bit. You can see the boats, and those are fairly big boats, I think. And I think they're boats. I see one boat. I don't know if it's pulling another thing or not. I'll look through the binoculars to see. There's another, it's like a fishing boat. And by the way, we're on the 12th floor, so this is, and then, I zoomed in a bit, so let's see how far that is. Okay, that is pretty, shows you how far, how big it is. I would guess that boat must be